Hello everyone. I thought I would pop in and show you my process as I make my Advent for 2026, as I have had a couple of requests from viewers to take you along on that activity. So I am going to dig through my small little stash of scraps and get my scale out and lay everything out and see what I have to work with for the Advent this year. So I will take you along with me and I hope you enjoy the process. I have a box of scrap yarn right here, so I need to pop it over on my desk and go through it and see what we have. So I have my scale ready to weigh the yarn. This one I just bought from Amazon and it was, I think, anywhere between $12 and $15 maybe. It's actually a jeweler's scale, so the measurements are in ounces and grams. When we turn it on, we have a small screen for reading the measurements, so that when I weigh my yarn balls, I know how much I have. And I use this case that it comes in on top of the scale, and that way I can put my yarn ball in as I'm winding it on and make sure I get to 10 grams. So scale is ready. Now I need to just go through and see what I have for yarn scraps. So I've taken my bags of scrap yarns out of my basket. I'm sure that I have enough scraps to make 24 10-gram minis, but what I'm going to do is lay them all out on my desk and then see what colors I have to work with. And then once I'm satisfied with 24 colors, I'll wind them up into 10-gram minis. Now, I'm not being very precious about whether they coordinate exactly or trying to make a fade or anything like that. I just want some colors that are fun to put into a scrappy project. Now, what that scrappy project will be for next Advent season, I don't know, and I'm not worried about it. There are so many great patterns out there. My inclination right now is that I would like to make a scrappy blanket, but it's January and there's a long time between now and then, and I'll probably change my mind. But let me get all these yarns laid out and then I'll show you what I have to work with, and then I'll get to winding on some of the minis. As it turned out, I am a little short of colors, so I'm going to have to be creative. This is the extent of my scraps, and some of these are not actually scraps, they're full skeins. But I think I can make it work, and this might possibly be the last year of the Homemade Advent if I'm able to use up all these scraps this coming year. All right, so let's get to weighing and rolling these up into little nuggets. I think this year's Scrappy Advent is going to be a tad wild. Some of these are fingering weight, and some of them are verging on sport weight, and I think one is actually a sport weight. So it's going to be a little thick and thin, just like the cowl was this year. So I might have to give some thought as to what I want to use them for. I have said in the past I do not have a large stash of yarn, and I'm also not a prolific knitter. So the scraps that I do have to choose from for this year especially are a little lacking, but that's okay. I will still show you the process and what I have, and I know next year when I open them up I'm still going to be thrilled. See how much this one weighs already. 14.6 grams. So I'm going to rewind this leftover into a ball. And the way that I do that is I take my thumb and my pinky finger to start with. I know this yarn is going to fly all over the place, and I make a figure of 8 just to start with. Several times around like this. And then I pull it off my finger and thumb and I fold it together. And then I just start winding it around my thumb. I'm sure everybody has a different, I knew I was losing yarn. Everyone has a different method of doing this. This is just how I learned from my mum. And it looks initially like it is never, ever going to wind up into a ball, but it does. It's yarn magic. So I'm going. And because I know this scrap was 15 grams, I know I'm going to have to wind pretty much all of it up in order to reach the 10-gram mark. Ordinarily, I would do this with a podcast on or some music, and I wouldn't be holding my arm at a weird angle. I'm only showing you this way because I want you to see what I'm doing. I'm pretty sure this yarn was from an independent dyer called Southern Skeins. And if I remember correctly, this one was called Water Lilies or Monet's Water Lilies or something. It's beautiful. So I will keep rolling this and I'll pop back when it's in its little final ball nugget. I should also mention that as I wind, I'm also rotating the ball as I go. I know there are people who wind beautiful balls of yarn that I think they're called gobstoppers, and they're works of art in themselves, but I'm just going round and round and round and rotating as I go. And then sometimes I do give it a little squish just to make sure it's staying in its shape. And if I show you close up, you can kind of see how as I'm rotating, I'm changing the direction of the yarn like this. All right, I'll be back in a flash. I have my little ball wound up, so I'm going to weigh it and see how we're doing. Excuse the weird camera angle. That is 10 grams. So if you do this enough, you'll know when you've hit the 10-gram mark. So that one is done, so I just need to snip it. One down, 23 to go. All right, so it has been a little while, coming back and forth to winding up some yarn balls. I should have timed myself, but I didn't. I stopped and had lunch, and I'm guessing maybe an hour and a half of winding, something like that. Anyway, I have 24 mini nuggets of yarn, and I did have to get creative, as I had told you, because I had some very nice rustic yarn that wasn't quite 10 grams, but I found that if I held it with some mohair, how did I do it? That it was enough. It was 10 grams. So I've done a couple of nuggets that were 2 strands held together. So I made it work, and then I had to dig into my stash of hand spun that's got a little stellina in it. This is one of the first attempts at spinning on a drop spindle, so it would be kind of fun to have that in the project. So they're all done. So the next thing I have to do is to wrap them. So I have some pretty string to tie the packages with. I'm all out of tissue paper, which is what I used last year, so I'm going to use some gift wrap this time. And then I have Christmas cards that I will stamp with my star cutter to make the labels for the tags. So that is the next task, is to wrap all the little yarn nuggets in a pretty package, and then I will come back when I've done that and show you what it looks like. I hope you found this video helpful and that you feel inspired to make your own Advent. And in the meantime, I will see you very soon for chapter 15 of the regular podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.